Negreanu versus Doug Polk. And we're heads up here for 200, 400. I'm here with Dylan Weissman, who apparently has a lot of nicknames. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here. Stoked that everyone is here to support the unbiased, totally not rooting for Doug Polk stream.
Yeah.
Because this, as an upswing coach, I want equal representation.
So what is your what's your experience with Heads Up No Limit?
That's a great question. Primarily, I'm a Heads Up Hotline Omaha player. I played a decent amount of Heads Up Hold'em way back in the day, probably in the 2011 pre-Black Friday streets. I have some background in Heads Up No Limit just because my friends are very good at it and they talk about it around me. And so I would say that the chat pros are going to have a fun time as we try to dissect these hands. But generally speaking, it might actually be good, Jamie, if you or I want to give a quick breakdown for those that don't know Heads Up Hold'em, or we can just look at this 3-bet pot that Daniel folded. But to give a brief breakdown of Heads Up No Limit Hold'em, I don't know how many people quite understand the constructs and what's in modern game theory. Do you want to start that, or do you want me to take it?
I think you're going to be more the expert. I'm just here to read the chat and needle Daniel.
Hell yeah. I'm very excited. It sounds like we're going to make a great team. So, okay, for those of you that don't know, Heads Up No Limit Hold'em is an incredibly aggressive game. I think we've seen that forever. For those of you that watched Daniel's and Doug's match last night, you're going to see about 80 to 90% opening ranges, anywhere from 2 to 3 bigs. Doug, from my understanding, plays about a 2.2 big blind opening strategy. I haven't seen what Daniel's is yet. Last night he was using 2.5. Both of those are fine. Optimal is closer to what Doug uses. You're going to see throughout this entire match that Doug is playing a very fundamentally solid strategy. He has put in the work and is coming from a background that's game theory oriented. Whereas I'm pretty sure Daniel has also been putting in some work in the GTO streets, but as we know, he is way more on the live side. So yeah, or not live, but like on the optimal tricky street side. So
Yeah.
you're going to see 80 to 90% opening ranges. You're going to see about a defending range of 60 to 70%. 3-bets also get pretty hyphy in this game. And so you're going to be seeing a lot of pots. And what's going to feel, I think, weird for a lot of people who might be used to watching Full Ring or Six Max or play either of those is that the amount of aggression that comes on the turn and river is really intense.
Gotcha. And we saw a lot of that with the live stream anyway. Daniel had said, he wishes he could play the whole thing live. So I think he puts a lot of stock in live reads and not quite as much as Doug does into GTO. So maybe it would have been more interesting in the live streets if Daniel would have made some crazy adjustments. But I don't know. I feel like the way that poker is going lately, like the people who study it the most tend to discount live reads a lot and just try to be fundamentally sound. What do you think of that?
I 100% agree. And I also actually want to make we have on table, do we have to have names for tables? I forgot. So on the right table that we saw an overbet on the turn from Doug, and then on a board texture changing river, a small lead from Daniel. And this is actually something that makes sense from a game theory perspective for Daniel. I don't know how many small leads he's going to get or if a block is the correct sizing, but Doug is going to still be able to overbet because he raised pre with a lot of his overpairs, top pairs, and stuff like that, and apply a ton of aggression to Daniel. But when board textures change generally, that's when you get to see the out-of-position caller actually start to play leads. And so this actually shows to me that Daniel's got a little bit more of a nuanced understanding than some people might have expected from him coming into this match.
Gotcha. And I know he has buckled down. He said on his podcast, Dat Poker podcast, that he has done a ton of studying in the month after WSOP ended for him. I guess he was in Mexico for GG. But it'll be interesting to see how quickly Doug got up to speed in a matter of about 2 or 3 months, having such a background, building himself up to the top, and how much Daniel could really make up that ground in just a month of practice.
Yeah, my guess is that Doug is going to bring the ruckus in terms of having been prepared. I don't want to give away too much, but Doug is a very hardworking individual, and he also really wants to beat the shit out of Daniel Negreanu. and when you put those two things together, right, like Doug literally was the best Heads Up No Limit Hold'em player on the planet for some time. And in order to get to that level, you have to have an incredible work ethic. And that's not to say that Daniel isn't also incredibly accomplished in poker generally. I don't want to take anything away from him. But for a game as technically sound as Heads Up Hold'em, you just really need to be sitting there working with the most modern theory and the most modern tools in order to be competitive at the highest stakes. And so we see a lot of talk in the on the Twitter streets in terms of like hybrid versus non-hybrid or whatever, hybrid versus GTO. And I think 25,000 hands is a really good sample to kind of see if the quote unquote hybrid style can really hold its ground against someone who is very well put together in the game theory streets. Speaking of which, Doug played a 3-bet on the right-hand table and then plays a 1/4 sizing on King 10-6. That seems very standard to me. Doug is going to have the range advantage in Ace King, King Queen, tens. He just has a full range advantage when he doesn't get forward bet. And so high cards are on the flop. You have a full range advantage, which means you are winning with all the really good cards. So you don't need to bet a lot because you want your opponent to continue at a wider frequency. The 8's not a great turn card for his range generally because Daniel's more in that middling connecting space. So a check makes a lot of sense. We have 2 big hands actually happening. I missed the action on the left table where Daniel bet 3/4. But Doug checks again on the river here. Not sure what Daniel's going to do. Checks back. Queen 10 makes perfect sense. On the left table, I missed the action. I don't know if you caught it, Jamie.
No, I was watching the same one that you were.
Yeah, we have
this actually highlights how hard it is to play 2 tables of such high limit heads up at the same time because they both have to pay attention to every single hand. This has to be so exhausting by the end of the day.
Yeah, but these dudes they love this shit. I can empathize with it. I love playing 4 tables of heads up PLO against somebody and just like getting into their soul and in their being. We see Daniel take it down, by the way, with the 3/4 pot sizing. I don't know. So this is one of the things where my lack of hold'em knowledge is kind of breaking down. I don't know if 3/4 on 5, 6, 10 is standard. It seems like it's fine to me, depending on your c-bet frequency. The 6 is not. The 6 is actually a card that Doug is going to get to play some leads on, because he flatted the big. So he's gonna have some like 6x, 5, 7x that you want to play some leads on the 6. So the fact that he doesn't play a lead means that his range is actually a little bit weaker than it would normally be, and we don't know how important that is, or if that's going to show up in a really verbose way. But I do think that's something that you need to note, and it makes sense that Daniel is going to be checking back the 6 at some frequency too.
Is that a spot where Doug will have any traps in to just balance and not be quite as weak when he doesn't lead?
Ooh, queens, well played. Yes, he'll for sure have some traps. Anyway, it also might be good. We're talking a lot of strategy here. Maybe it's better for us to slow it down a little bit. Talk about what the players are doing. I don't know how much we want to do that, but
it's no matter what. Some people in chat want to hear your strategy the entire time, and there are some people who just want to see blood. Like, how much is Doug up or whatever. You can't please everyone, so I feel like I don't know. I'm enjoying you commentating on a lot of the strategy here. I'm learning a lot. It's up to you.
I don't know if we want to learn from me. That's the thing. I'm a PLO player, but we'll see. We'll see. So this is a spot on the right hand table. It went check check. Doug gets to play a little bit of a larger sizing here, which makes sense. Daniel folds. Left-hand table, it was a single raise pot. Doug, it's very something I think that people don't generally understand is that when flop goes check check and out of position player starts betting, unless there's been like a really intense board texture change, you get to take a decent amount of aggression in that spot. And so we see that here with Doug betting 3/4 on the turn. The 4 on the river hits a lot of Doug's bluffing range, right? If he had like 5x, 5/8, I don't know how much like ace 5 he has because they didn't 3-bet. That'll have some king 5, some queen 5. Ends up checking the river because he could also just have his single pair type stuff. Sorry for the typing. Daniel bets and Doug folds.
I can never read the Twitch screen names because they're always something that will get me in trouble. But a guy with green in his name said that we won't see blood between two best friends.
Ooh. If
I
only
know people were not happy. They were expecting there to be a bunch of barbs going back and forth in the live portion of it, and it was friendly. But I think, you know, a lot had to do with a lot of people being worried the country was burning down. I guess they didn't want to add to all the division that day.
On the right-hand table, we see Doug making a bluff and Daniel making a pretty standard call, I think, with the 10-7, cheap pair on the river. I agree with you also, though. I think people wanted to see some ruckus. And what's going to be more fun is now that they don't have to hang out with each other, we get the shit talking back, right?
Yeah.
Like now that they don't have, like, they're both good humans, I think, in person generally. I've only interacted with Daniel like half a dozen times and I've interacted with Doug a bunch. They've both been very cordial in person. But online, as we all know, they like to spit some fucking fire. And I want to see more of that. I want to see one person win like 500K in 2 sessions and then just talk mad shit. Like that's my dream.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I feel like that could have happened. I think if Daniel got stuck 50K real quick, it might have been a little less comfortable and less fun.
Yeah, Doug is very good at holding his things. Anyway, left-hand table, 3-bet pot, 3/4 sizing on the Queen 5-3 flop. Don't know how GTO that is. Maybe someone who's an expert can help me out. Doug calls. Turn goes check, which I don't. If Doug were to bet, he's probably going to play a smaller sizing, but he doesn't need to bet very often because he can just overbet rip this river if he wants to. We'll see what ends up happening. On the right-hand table, as this is going on, we get a check raise on the river from Daniel. Oh, sorry, not a raise. Sorry, not a check raise. Just a raise on the river from Daniel. 3x sizing.
And Doug takes down a 50K pot here. Nice overbet jam on the river. Norman Chad asks if there's a way he can just mute Jamie Kersitter's commentary. Thank you, Norm.
You seem like a nice person. I don't know.
Norm is awesome. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud on a stream, but Norm is awesome. We actually just adopted 2 dogs from the same litter, so we're basically in-laws.
Hell yeah. I was thinking about adopting a dog this quarantine, but wanted to be a responsible adult about it and didn't have the emotional energy to do it. Upswing. Here we go. I'm gonna pull up. I was looking at YouTube, but I want to pull up Twitch just because Twitch is my home. See who's in the streets. Aw. You know what I love about Twitch chat is that the humans that show up in it, especially those that like are in the top funnel of the poker section, they love to just like throw as much shit as possible at anyone talking, no matter what. Even like if you're winning a ton of money and talking, they will still throw shit at you. It's very fascinating.
It's a good place to go if you're ever feeling overconfident. They'll knock you down a few pegs and, you know, keep you humble.
That's very true. I did a bankroll challenge where I was in a downswing for 2 months. That felt great to show up to Twitch chat every day. It was epic. Anyway, on the right-hand table, Doug is betting a little less than $3,000 into a $4,200 pot. The straight comes in on the river. So Doug is going to be able to bet some 2 pairs here, but he doesn't get to play a lot of overbets, I don't think. Just ends up having a bluff. Gets called down by 1 pair by Daniel. Daniel's been playing very passively from what I've seen with his like top pair-y type stuff, top pair bad kicker. And that is one way to kind of regulate your hand classes, where it's like with your good top pairs, you can take more aggression. With your bad top pairs, you play more passive. But top pair is still a really good hand, and he just plays it way more passively than I generally see.
I saw some hesitance to call with hands that were really strong too on the live stream. Did it seem like that to you too? I don't know how much of it you caught, but it seemed like certain hands that would be a slam dunk call were kind of crying calls, and I was wondering if that is going to be the way the match goes, that Doug's going to be able to get away with some pretty big bluffs.
I'm not sure. Daniel seems to just love clicking the call button on later streets. So we'll see how frisky it gets. Also, what people have to remember is this is the very beginning of a 25,000 hand challenge. And I think that Daniel is going to be, from my understanding, because he's more of the hybrid style, going to be on the like changing up the speed, trying to adjust to what Doug's doing. And Doug is just going to keep showing up using a very solid fundamental strategy. And so I think we're going to start to see more variation from Daniel than we would from Doug.
Yeah, I think Daniel balances by either calling or crying and then calling.
Doug makes a great call on the left here. It's a $10,000 pot, calls a top pair. Daniel makes the call. Doug didn't. I think that people are a little confused because we have, myself included, Doug on the top and on the bottom on another one, which is a little bit challenging. We're sorry for that for those in the chat who are maybe a little confused. Thankfully, Daniel is Canadian, and the fact that he has a Canadian flag next to his name should make it easier for you to follow the action. Doug makes the king high call on the river in an $8,000 pot. That's what you love to see.
Nice.
Daniel is bluffing with queen high.
The Timon00 says, is this a D-Negs bashing stream? You have come to the right place, sir.
No, this is an unbiased. Why would you pick an upswing coach and somebody who has publicly talked shit on Daniel and put them in a stream and not think it's unbiased?
Yeah.
To be fair though, Daniel seems as if he's been cordial in recent times. I have nothing against him personally. I just like Doug, so I don't want to. I will let you do the bashing if you feel so inclined.
Very similar. I'm here for the lulz. Much like Doug, I used to write for Doug's YouTube channel and help with the videos and stuff. So like, I'm here for the lulz. No actual hatred, but you know,
That's
can't
fair.
go easy on him.
That makes sense. Twitch chat, I have a question for you. How many people bet on this match? Like actually took your dollars, put your money where your mouth is, and bet on this?
How about you?
Me? Cannot disclose. Upswing coach. But I might have some action. Take a poll. That's a great question. Can one of our mods start a poll? That actually would be helpful.
To do what? Start a poll?
Start a poll on Twitch.
Ooh, I don't even know how to do that.
Neither do I right now.
All right.
I should know. I should know.
I've heard it's not great.
The can't flip tables. Oh man. Anyways, here on the right-hand table, we have a relatively small pot. Daniel is deciding what to do on the river. Something that I think people underestimate in these sort of challenges, we see Daniel going for a $2,200 bet into about 3,000. It's just how important these smaller pots are. Doug once again, Doug had a very easy call on the river. Didn't even have to think about it. Ace-9, could maybe even go for a raise. Daniel had queen-8, absolute airball. But I think people underestimate how important the smaller decisions are. Because in a lot of situations, you're just going to show up when someone has the nuts or someone doesn't have the nuts, and it's very polar. But you make so much of your win rate understanding the nuances of bet sizing and like check bet spots. And that's, in my opinion, a place where Doug's probably going to have a little bit more of an advantage. We see Daniel betting $1,500 into 2,000 on a jack board. I don't know if that's the play. Can any of my chat pros tell me if that's the standard bet sizing in jack? Because I don't know if that's true. Anyway, we get the call from Doug. Turn is a 3, which is not a card above a jack, which means the probability of a full house happening is not as high. River's a 2. If Daniel has any of his high ace-x type stuff, is likely to be the best hand. If Doug bets, which I was going to say I don't think he does at a high frequency, it probably would be a little bit of a larger sizing, but who knows? The queen high ends up taking it down, though. Surprised that Daniel's checking back the turn and river with a hand that doesn't beat queen high. That like if you're one of those nerds who uses a randomizer, that's probably a mixed spot where Daniel has to be betting at some frequency on the 2-3 run out if he can't beat queen high.
Yeah, he actually gave up on a big live pot as well in a spot where I believe he 3-bet pre with the king 3 off and then just checked it down. I was wondering if maybe he was, putting a little more into the live reads and thought that Doug was trapping him that hand or something, but it was pretty bizarre to not try to stab at any point. I thought he was going to go for a big river bet and he just checked it down and let Doug win.
That's interesting. The more challenging thing about taking really big river bets in spots where you haven't shown previous aggression is that you're only really supposed to do it if there's a big board texture change. And this is more true in PLO than in Hold'em, so I don't want to like misbalance things. But if you haven't bet at all and then nothing changes and then you go for like a rip of an overbet, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're supposed to be taking aggression with the parts of your range that interact with the board. Left table here, we have a 3-bet pot. We see both Daniel and Doug using about a similar 3-bet sizing, and we don't see Daniel really changing his C-bet sizing relative to the pot dependent on board texture. We saw him doing it on the Jack, Jack, Jack type stuff. Now we see it on 3-8-9. He also is going for about a $6,000 into a $9,000 pot. We got a call here from Doug, turn Jack. If Daniel has the like Jack 10 portion of his range or the Queen 10 portion of his 3-betting range, which are mixes, pretty sure. Interesting to see, but ends up checking. Doug interacts well with this board once he calls. The king of clubs, this is what you would call a board texture change. Like this would be a river where Daniel gets to bring some fire. Just because he didn't bet the turn, now the king interacts with his ace king and his king queens that he 3-bet with, and his king sixes. So another surprising spot that Daniel decides not to take a bet when he rivers top pair. And with that specific combination, it might be better to play as a check call to try to get Doug to bluff. Daniel trying to be a little trappy here. But yeah.
So chat is a bit obsessed with the tables being flipped and having Doug on top on one and on the bottom the other. We actually can't change it because we're logged on as viewers. If you're playing, you could choose your seat, but as a viewer, you can't. Sorry, yes. Guys.
And as I said, Daniel is Canadian with the Canadian flag. So use your nationalism to tune in to figure it out as best as you can. That is what literally, that's the cue that I'm using right now, and it's helpful. We get a check raise all in. Daniel with the flush draw. Doug with 2-pair wins a $92,000 pot. Don't mind the check raise by Daniel. Doug is obviously snapping it off. So Q1 for Team Polk. That's going to be huge on the comeback trail. Yeah, you're never. Yeah, as someone would say, get your dongers out, right? That's we have to bring that back, right?
Yes. Yeah, anyway. It was sad when Doug stopped making videos and wasn't playing anymore. I'm like, oh my God, all these traditions just die. But he's back. Daniel Negreanu, who's gotten Doug back to poker. I think he'll probably regret that.
It's the only thing that could have gotten Doug back.
Yeah.
3-bet pot here on the right-hand side. King 7-8 board. So this is the difference between Daniel and Doug. Daniel is betting 3/4 or bigger on these boards. Doug's betting less. We see the ace of clubs turn, about $12,000 in the pot. See a check, check. River is a 7. Daniel's going to have some 7s. Doug will have a little bit of 7s. We'll see how it goes when it gets to Daniel here on the river. I don't foresee Daniel making a big bet, like an overbet in this spot, but we'll see if that ends up changing. Daniel goes with a relatively large sizing, has the airball. Doug calls him down with the king queen. He says, absolutely not. The 7's a bad card for Doug on the river because it counterfeits his kicker. Now all king X's are the same, but I don't think Doug's expecting Daniel to bet a lot of his kings for that sizing on the river. So all kings are created equal, as Doug would say about himself. And sorry, I'm just kidding. And ends up going and making the great call there. Daniel had the 6-4, which is one of the combinations he needs to be bluffing with.
Sixer asked how many hands they're playing per session. I believe they're playing 2 hours today. Obviously, it's up to them if they decide they want to go longer or shorter. But I think that is the plan for now, to do relatively short sessions, not counting hands.
We have some readjusting of table sizes here. this is why Upswing this is why I chose to associate my brand with Upswing, is that it's just pure quality. Like, the people ask for something, and then you give the people what they want. They want larger table sizes, we give them larger table sizes. They want the screen to be flipped, we're not allowed to do that, but we'll talk about it and say we're sorry.
I was going to say, we draw the line at new commentators. When you ask for new commentators, we ignore that completely.
That is true. I mean, to be fair, you're the one with the commentary. I'm like a Twitch streamer. You actually got this commentary shit down. I'm just spewing out of my face.
Oh, no. I especially Twitch, all I want to do is read the chat and talk to them, so I'm kind of dust at commentary here, but just enjoying the show along with them. Hopefully that's better for you guys. And also, this is the first stream. They're going to be playing tons of these, so if there's anything that you think would help make it better, we're going to try to adjust it for you.
Definitely. Jamie, one sec, actually. Have you ever just made random commands in a Twitch chat before so that you can spam them whenever people say things? Have you done that?
I have not. What are you thinking here? What are you adding?
I just want you to have mod powers so that you can use your talents for good. Daniel checks back King Jack on the river there. That to me is surprising. Checked back King Jack on a board where there weren't very many straights and flushes, showing this continuous passive style. But yeah, the modding is mostly just to make commands. Like, abuse that power. Like, exclamation point. Let me see if I can do this.
King K's, that's a great question. How many hands per hour will they get in? And I'm really not sure. I know live it wasn't much. It was probably 40 to 50 hands an hour, but obviously we're two tabling. And each player, like they have barely time banked at all. So a lot. maybe I'll ask Upswing if they have any idea of exactly how many hands we played in just 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we're this first day we're gonna get a lot of information. Spraggy says, "Do not mod curse setter." Does that mean ban him? I don't.
I would ban the shit out of Spraggy. Are you kidding me?
He seems like a nice gentleman. I watched him play Among Us one time, and he wasn't that great at that, but he seems pretty good at poker and a nice person. So I don't want to like. People are asking what my glasses are. These are blue blocker glasses, just because stare at a screen all day. You want to take care of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel had kings on a board that is not good for kings. The 7, 8, 9, 10. They both have a straight now. RIP.
For anyone who's just like wandered into the stream, because I know that happens to me a lot on Twitch, this is the start of a huge challenge. They're going to be playing 25K hands, heads up, 200, 400. And if I think they have the clause they could quit at 12,500 hands, the loser has the ability to bow out if they want. I do think, though, that Daniel put some money on the entire match with Bill Perkins. He got a good price, so maybe we will see all 25K hands. And it's a grudge match. You guys all know the history that they've, Doug's made quite a few funny videos about Daniel that he didn't like very much, and we've had some words on Twitter, so makes for some interesting stakes here.
We have another question saying, how much is the price to bow out?
There wasn't one. They actually had no price to bow out.
Yeah, this is why I love it. There was no like side betting. This was like, yo, we're gonna play 25,000 hands of 200, 400, and halfway through, if you want, you can stop. And I'm gonna let the crowd in on something that I believe to be true, is that if Doug is down after 12,500 hands, I do not think he'll be bowing out. I don't have any inside information. Like, I haven't talked to Doug about this at all personally, but I do think that Doug is gonna keep battling.
I agree with that. I think Daniel will too. It doesn't seem like it's within his personality to just quit unless he was getting thrashed. Like if he's running bad and is very outmatched, I think there's a chance he would quit. What do you think of that?
I don't know Daniel that well. Like, I'm not. I mean, he definitely has a lot of pride in his poker game. I think that he has a lot of pride in his personal image and wants to be able to show up and put in his best. And to be fair, he said that he would put in work and do well in the super high rollers. And I don't play super high rollers. I'm not one of the wizards there, so I don't know how good he is, but his results are epic. And so as someone who has the ability to put in work, I would be remiss to say that he would just like very easily back out. I think that he's going to keep battling most likely. But if you're down like if you're down like a mill ball after 12,500 hands, it might be hard to fight against that. And that's what's crazy about the stakes of this challenge. $1 million is what, 25 buy-ins? And that is very little buy-ins in heads up, no limit hold'em, especially in an aggressive dynamic. And so it's possible we see multiple $1 million swings in this challenge, which is why it's so epic. And because these dudes are just going to want to shit talk about it the entire time. Anyway, 3-bet pot. We see Daniel doing his first size down. He bets about $1,700 or $1,650 into a $8,300 pot. Doug, somewhat similarly on another lockdownish board texture, bets small. Both called. Both right-hand table, we don't get a board texture change. Left-hand table, this is a very texture changey card. Doug likes to play a check. You're going to see lots of checking as the aggressor on board texture changes, no matter what the game. That's what game theory says. Both tables, we see a big bet on the turn from Negreanu. And now on both tables, we're still 100 big blinds deep. So we're in the either check raise all in or check call with an SPR, stack to pot ratio of about 1 on the river, or I guess a little less on the left table. Calls on both tables. We have two $30,000 pots on our hands happening simultaneously. All in.
Snap call
With the straight. DNeg's got the set. You cannot fault him for that. That is a very I think that's a fine shove. Maybe someone can let me know if that's wrong, but he's got Daniel flopped a set, Doug flopped a straight. Doug wins 150. Oh, sorry, no, he wins half that. $80,000 in one pot. Absolutely epic. And is the Dongri emote still exist?
You know what we really need? Get your trucks out, right? So he's gonna back the truck up.
Do we have a truck emote? Can the Upswing team get us a truck emote made, please, as soon as possible, so that we can back that truck up? Daniel makes a small bet on the river with a flush in a spot where Doug has so many hands he can call with. Gets called though, so can't blame. Maybe that was some white magic. Doug had like 2 pair that ends up calling the river. Daniel was able to figure it out. But Daniel wins the left-hand table. It was not as significant as Doug's win, but still very nice to get value from your flush on the river.
Yeah, that's one of the mistakes I feel like are hard to correct. When you are betting too small for value, you never really know when you're wrong. So you get called, you get what you want, but don't realize when you're actually missing out on a lot of value. I feel like that's a big leak I've had for a while, and you don't realize it until someone points out that, hey, you're still getting called by so much. You can bet 3/4 pot here, and you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's one of them. Just look at this call. Daniel had river to king, makes a good value bet. Doug calls with a 10. Also, it seems like a fine call. Back to your statement, that is one of the quintessential traits of a very, very good poker player, is how to efficiently bluff and maximize value. Mm-hmm. And the smaller sizing paradigm that you're describing is one that shows up with a lot of players that they just want to have this feeling of getting value and winning, right? They want to know that they're getting paid off. And whereas that will work at some frequency, what you end up losing out on is the ability to bluff more because you're betting smaller, which is a very, very big portion of any poker game, is having the ability to bluff at a high frequency, especially a game like Heads Up No Limit Hold'em, as well as being able to extract max value in situations where you just have the nuts more often than your opponent. Mm-hmm. Like Daniel betting small on I don't even remember, it was like 8, 9, 10 queen 3-spade board, like, and him betting a third of the pot versus going all in when Doug only had 2/3 of a pot size bet left. That's something that I don't know like is real. Like, as I said, I'm not the Hold'em GTO calculator, but I think that you're gonna want to be able to find some bigger bets there so that you can actually bluff. Just really hard for Daniel to find bluffs at that sizing. Swim, what is good, fam? Nice to see you. A couple of my Twitch regulars in here.
Oh, do you stream often?
I used to. I did a like 4-month-long bankroll challenge for PLO on Twitch. So I was in the Twitch streets for a couple months and got very tired of being in the Twitch streets. But might come back to the Twitch streets soon because I miss y'all, and it's nice having a community.
Yeah.
Anyway,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, nothing. We have a 4-bet pot.
That's more important than what I was going to say.
Daniel C. bets and folds.
Yeah, I streamed a little bit when I was with Party New Jersey, and it was fun, but it was like hard to get it started. And then once you get it started and you have a bunch of regs in the chat that talk to each other, it was way less pressure and like actually fun.
Yeah, definitely. Left-hand table, we see a check raise from Daniel on the 2-2-4 board. Doug elects to go with the smaller sizing, gets check raised. And we see a call. Turn is a 7 of diamonds. Daniel's going to have some of the flush draws. Doug's going to have some of the flush draws. Daniel's going to have less, just like 4x, I think, that he's check raising. So it makes a ton of sense that he bets on the turn. And we see a very quick fold from Doug. Right-hand table, Daniel elects to bet 1 big blind and then gets check raised and folds immediately. That seems like on a king 7 deuce board, that seems like some hybrid magic to me. How long are they playing today? I believe 2 hours, correct, Jamie? Is this a 2-hour session?
That is the plan, but I wouldn't be surprised. Similar to I watch Galfon, they would sometimes just decide, today's going to be a marathon stream and go 4 hours, and some days, I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel quit early once in a while. Just knowing him, like he could just be not feeling it. Feel player,
What happens when you get a field player and a not field player in the room? That's the real question.
Well, one gets very rich and the other one does not.
That is a very true statement. Doug was going for a check raise on the river on the right-hand table, does not get it through. That's a spot where I think a check raise makes a lot of sense, just because Doug isn't supposed to have a lot of the very good hands, and he hasn't taken aggression before. So you want to be able to bring the ruckus on the river, and which means you have to have some good hands sometimes. But yeah, one's going to make a lot of money. To be fair, I took a pretty long break from poker and came back and found out that GTO existed, and then just went real hard into it, and that is a true lesson. You will make money.
Yeah, I find it very daunting. I am messing with solvers and stuff, but I'm very late to the party. But really, I think that that's the future of poker. And unless you get the invites to amazing private games and can pick your opponents, you're going to have to start studying solvers. There's no other way to do it.
I agree with you. If only there was a site like upswingpoker.com that hires some of the best coaches in the world to actually do some of that game theory work for you, as well as teach you about game theory thought processes. Anyway, back to the action. Left-hand table, we see a bet and a call. River pairs the board. Right-hand table, we have a 3-bet pot. Doug bets the flop, gets called. Turn is a 4. See what happens here. You can see a lot going down here. We're really deep on a right-hand table. We've now eclipsed that 100 big blind range. We're in the 130 big blind range. So you get a little more nuance. Doug decides to start backing up the truck now. Daniel wins the left-hand table, but Doug bets 2/3 on the turn so that he can bet 2/3 all in on the river. That's what you call a geometric sizing pattern, for those of you who are unaware of it. You bet a sizing on the turn that makes it so that your sizing on the river is aligned with that. And that is a very easy way to construct a value betting line, just because your frequencies move out really well. Left-hand table, 3-bet pot. Daniel goes with his thick c-bet sizing on the 10-5-4 rainbow. Doug's thinking about what to do here. Gets called.
Pretty crazy that they're not resetting. Like, there's a chance there could just be a 400K pot at some point.
Your boy loves to see it. I want to see as much pain as absolutely possible. Speaking of pain, Daniel ships the turn on the 6 of hearts and then gets the quick fold from Doug. I love to see that too. I love to see that Daniel's not willing to just like click the all in button. Update the results. That is true. So for everyone in chat, we appreciate you for being here. We want you to have as wonderful of a viewing experience as possible, and we would ask for a small amount of patience because unfortunately, WSOP.com does not have good infrastructure for these types of challenges. They do not make it easy for us. And so everything is done manually by wonderful humans who are doing very good work. And so we ask for you to be patient when there are things like updating the results or not having the seats in the perfect place or knowing exactly how many hands we've played, because all of that has to get done manually. So we ask for some kindness so that we can bring you as epic of a challenge as possible. Because the good news is somebody is paying to show you this. You ain't gotta do nothing. You just sitting there, and then like there's a group of humans working very hard to bring you this action, and for that we should thank them all. Hashtag thank you to everyone on the Upswing team for doing this. But yeah, just be aware of that when something's not perfect, is that this is done manually because you have to do it that way. And that's not how you want to do production generally.
You know, you make good points, but I'm leaving. This isn't perfect. This sucks. I'm out.
All right, I'm not solo casting this, so they're gonna get a blank stream. Doug overbets the river, gets a fold on our left-hand table. Why did Doug agree to play Daniel? Lots of money would be my guess.
Doug? I was surprised though. Were you not surprised that he was willing to put in work and study again and play? I could not believe it when he actually said he's doing it.
I don't want to talk to. I just like I don't want to talk too much about that. But I think, let's say someone walks up to you and you're like, "Yo, put in some work for 2 or 3 months. Here's like $1 million in EV." And you've already been one of the best in the world at something. And you're like sitting around, you're doing work, you're like Doug Polk, you've got a lot of stuff going on, but you're like, I like $1 million in EV. Maybe I take that $1 million in EV. Like I know that he said he was out and was very burnt out, but and also it's like for my opinion, it's the combination of just like a fat stack of dollars as well as the competitive feeling, right? Like we've all been in the space of like being kind of complacent in this world that's been locked down. So sometimes, like, I know personally, I wanted to bring some more ruckus in parts of my life. And this seems like imagine your favorite punching bag just showed up to you, like, which is what I'm sure Doug sees Daniel as. Like, I don't know that for fact, but that's my perception. He shows up, it's like, yo, here's $1 million to punch me. It's like, all right, I need to punch something. Like that'd be my read. Left-hand table though, we have a 3-bet pot, goes check, check. Makes a lot of sense for the 3-better to check this board. Makes a little less sense for the caller to be checking it, but I think it's fine. Turn brings a second flush draw as well as a straight. And I don't know how many 5s either person's going to have because we haven't seen aggression yet. We haven't seen like the ace-5, king-5 from Daniel. But anyway, let's see what they do on the river here. Daniel checks. Doug now has a decision. And this is kind of what I was talking about before. Doug's not going to get to play like the huge sizings. This is a board texture change in that the board paired, but Doug didn't bet the flop. So he's not going to have a lot of the 6-4, 4-7 type stuff. He could have 6x, but that's not a nutted hand. And there's still straights on the board. And so you don't get to play that big sizing.
And what kind of value bets does he have here?
I mean, he's going to have a lot of 6x's. He'll probably have some 7x too. He's sizing down. I don't didn't 4-bet. How deep are we? Didn't 4-bet. So I don't know what, like, I think in heads up, yeah, 7x. Yeah, 7-9. Makes a lot of sense when he sizes down because he's just gonna just have a lot of pure air as well. And I actually love to see the check from Doug on the flop with the 7-9 on the 7-6-4 board texture, specifically because that hand doesn't like a lot of turns. And you don't want to be, and this is a term called robust equity, which I talk about a bunch, but pretty much it's just like, if you don't like betting a lot of turns, you don't want to really start betting the flop very often. And his hand plays really well in terms of having good immediate equity against Daniel's range, but it hates getting check raised. And so, yeah, back to the action. Doug sizes down from his sizings that he's been using, which is an adjustment. I think the first adjustment that we're seeing sizes down to a about $3,800 3-bet. Daniel immediately 4-bets him. This might be some hybrid voodoo magic. We'll see what happens. Doug rips it in his face. Queens versus tens. That is what you call a cooler. And then I would like someone to get their dongers out in the chat, please, as Doug wins. I think our first $100,000 pot, $105,000 going to Doug Polk.
I have a question for you. How deep would you get that in? Is this about the threshold there? 50K for queens versus tens? Is that just going in even deeper than that?
Tens start to play more calls. I don't know at what cutoff. Mm-hmm. I'd assume in like the 130 to 150 range, you're going to start getting more calls from tens on the button specifically, because you want to have strong hands in your button calling range at that stack depth. But at 50K, I think tens is very, very easy, especially given the because remember, you can get it in lighter if your opponent's 3-betting more, because you need to be playing more 4-bets. Everyone's wider. Doug is a ferocious 3-better, is an easy way to describe it. Mm-hmm. And so in that situation,
you're happy to get him in then.
Yeah, I'm snap getting in tens, I think, and that's why. Also, Doug's going to be ripping a lot of his like ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5 suited type stuff as well. So you just get it in the tens. Doug is no longer only up 20K troll chat, but it's okay. Actually, God, I want to have. All right, it's hard to do. No, I'm gonna just take a second for comment. Exclamation point command. Can I do that? Oh, it's adcom. Exclamation point. Oops. We cannot control the seats.
Yeah, I would, if I were you and I was making commands right now, I would make one that was, sorry, we can't flip the seats.
I'm trying. Yeah, I don't know what our command structures are.
And also exclamation point truck.
So yeah, to back that shit up.
Yes. I've heard some rumors, I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not, but that they might play the very end of the match live as well, which would be kind of fun. I'm hoping Doug's up by infinite at that point.
Oh, it'd be so funny. I would love that.
Yeah.
We had a message from Matt Poker, or sorry, not Matt, Matt252 saying that we are doing a good job. Thank you, Matt. This is a chat where we're not going to give attention to negativity. We're going to give attention to positivity.
Oh no, I read the negativity and I just internalize it.
Oh, that sounds so healthy. That sounds so healthy. I love it. For those of you, I think that hey, kaboom, my homie Trico here. For anyone who loves Heads Up No Limit Hold'em, my homie Trico is a streamer in Hold'em, is very good. Make sure to check him out. I think Landon Tice might even be lurking in the chat. Like we got some Hold'em. This is going to bring out all the crushers, right? Because everyone wants to see it. What I have found fascinating is that Doug just decided to start playing all the absolute best Heads Up No Limit Hold'em players in the world. He's like, yo, I'm back for 3 months. I'm going to play literally all the best players in the world.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got wrecked by Ali Msirovic, but that dude's kind of a prodigy, I feel like. And it was awesome that he was willing to play him and for so many hours. Yeah, Doug's pretty fearless.
Dude, it takes, I think that people don't, and I'm Doug's friend. I do not want to make it sound as if I'm just like saying that he's a god in all these ways, because he's a human like everyone else. But one thing that he does have that is truly unique is his work ethic. And like you don't get to the top of poker, you don't get to the top of YouTube, you don't get to the top of business, like building successful businesses without putting in a metric fuck ton of work. And I think that has taken for granted by a lot of people who kind of just see his public persona. And the same can be said for Daniel, right? Like maybe Daniel doesn't put as much work into his poker game, but he for sure has put a ton of work into his brand and into like his content and all the ways that he presents himself. So in order to get to the spot that either of these individuals have, you have to give them a massive amount of credit.
For sure. And that's actually, it started the issue with Doug and Daniel. Daniel had put a tweet out that was about how he could beat 2550 online if he just practiced for 2 weeks. If I study for 2 weeks, I could beat these guys. That's actually what pissed Doug off before anything else even started. This was years ago, where Doug just said, you know, you're kind of disrespecting all these people who work so hard to actually beat those stakes. And he issued some kind of challenge then if Daniel wanted to play somebody. I don't even know if it was him, but that's what started it. So that's Doug just being offended because he's like, I put in so much work and like
Yeah,
my friends put in so much work. You should recognize that and not make these unfounded claims.
I agree. We see a check raise on the turn here by Daniel. Doug bet 2,000. Daniel check raises 3x to about 6,000 on the flush completion. Daniel is going to definitely have a lot of bluffs here, like single diamond hands, like the queen nine of diamonds. That makes literal perfect sense. I'm happy to see Daniel finding bluffs there, right? I think a lot of people were expecting Daniel to show up and just be this weak live reg, but the fact that he's finding like the queen of diamonds check raise bluff on the turn in a bet spot, that shows me that he's really showing up with a game plan. And so, as much as we're going to talk that Doug is doing a good job, you also want to be happy that you're seeing Daniel find some spots of aggression. And I'm really excited to see how that continues as the match goes on.
How much adjusting to each other do you think they'll do? Do you think because Doug is more into GTO and he's been studying like that, that there won't be much? Or do you think that he's going to be able to make some exploits?
I want to answer that question after the hand on the right hand table because
Sure.
it's going to be interesting. Jack 10-6 turn ace. We see a check from Doug. Daniel shouldn't have a lot of bets here. And so I'm going to be surprised if he does. Goes with a larger sizing, which makes sense. Doug ends up folding. Back to your question. This is a larger discussion, which I'm not going to take up a lot of time with, but I think that there is a general misunderstanding that if you play GTO, you're not adjusting. When you know what the optimal strategy is, what's really powerful about that is seeing how your opponents are deviating from that optimal strategy. And so if you're someone who has a really strong theoretical background, if you're perfect, like if you're trying to be sauce 1, 2, 3, anyway, left hand Doug finds the raise with the 7. Daniel just calls with the flush. That's, I think, standard from both players. We're really deep. So I'm fine with just a call with the jack high flush by Daniel there. And obviously Doug having a7 as a good raise. But that's a big misconception. It's like, unless you're trying to be the perfect solver, one of the most powerful things about game theory is that you are seeing where game theory optimal is, and then you're seeing where your opponent is not. And so you now have the balancing line. You now have the ability to see where the deviation should be, because a lot of people, when they do exploits, they think of it as like, oh, they bet big, they don't have it when they bet big, I'm going to do this. But in reality, if you really understand game theory optimal poker, it's they bet big, they're not supposed to bet big very often anyway. Doug bets big, Daniel has the better full house, like the check, Doug goes with the ruckus. We're going to see that a lot this challenge, I think. But anyway, so what I was saying is that, like, in a game theory scenario, it's like they bet big. They're not supposed to bet big this often. Therefore, because I know they are deviating from what is optimal, I now get to make this adjustment. So just because you're playing optimally doesn't mean that you're not adjusting. It means that you know where the baseline is. You're going to be in your own game very solid. Like, people aren't going to be able to find that many leaks in yourself, but that also you know how to adjust relative to where your opponent is deficient. And that is so I would expect to see both players adjusting. I'd expect Doug's like core fundamentals in terms of like his preflop strategy, the hands that he's using, the frequencies at which he's doing things, how he's using a randomizer, everything that is solid game theory fundamentals. I expect that to be relatively static, but I would expect him to also bring some ruckus and change it up. And I think Daniel's going to change it up a ton. Like, that's my read on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my favorite spiels. So you asked me a question that I thought about a lot. We see a check raise on the flop here from Daniel. Doug bet a small sizing. Turn is a queen. Some of Daniel's bluffs are going to be queen X. Doug's going to have a little X, queen X, little less queen X than Daniel. So let's see what Daniel does on the turn here. Ends up checking. Makes a lot of sense.
Wow, I think you won, Dylan. You got the first chat apology I've ever seen.
Hell,
Zach K. Poker says, computer glasses is kind of killing this. I apologize for the early shade.
hell yeah. You love to see it. This I'm not gonna lie, this is like, if this was PLO, I'd be way more in the GTO street. So maybe it's better that it's Hold'em, so we can just let people watch the action. But I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying not knowing what's going on and learning from these two people. And that's something, you all are getting so much free information. Think about that shit. You have like two of the best players in the world battling each other at the highest stakes. You just get to watch it. Like, see that on a single race pot when there's two flush draws and then the top board pairs, Doug uses this sizing. Why is that true? You can learn from that. Like, we all want to see I want to see the $500,000 pots and the shit talking, but this is also some of the most valuable training material, even without hole cards, because you can really start to deconstruct what each of these people are doing in a generalized situation. Speaking of a generalized situation, ace comes on the river. Daniel, we have not seen a lot of overbetting from Daniel. We see the 3/4-ish sizing. Doug finds the 2,700 into 36. Doug finds a raise over this. See what happens here.
Doug seems like a nightmare to play against.
Hell yeah.
Whatever spot, he just takes every spot. Like, any weakness he senses, he's just pounding every pot. And he takes it down. Nice hand, Doug.
I mean, that's what it's going to be like playing the best players in the world at any game. When I'm playing, like, I know myself, and when I'm playing some of the better PLO players, they're just bloodbaths. Speaking of bloodbath, like another 4-bet pot, it is like straight up aggression, and that is where the game is evolving. Like, that is what like Sensei says, the solver says that you have to have the ruckus. All in call, ace queen versus queens, another almost $100,000 pot, and Doug scoops it in.
No Barry Greenstein for D-Negs here. Another massive pot. Doug's won 3 for 3.
Yeah, Doug is doing well in the 6-figure pot range, which as an upswing, that's actually something Ryan Fee made a module on how to run like a god. So if you go to the Upswing Lab, I think Doug has probably taken that course. So make sure you go to upswingpoker.com, look for the Ryan Fee How to Win Money at Life module. That's probably what Doug is doing to hold in these spots. Also, ace queen, that's a spicy shove. Ace queen, it's probably fine, but spicy. Left-hand table, Doug plays a $1,900 bet into about 28. Daniel's got the raise on the river now. I didn't see all the action, so I don't know how many fours he's supposed to have. Doug's probably contemplating making a call here with like a 10x that he was playing a bet sizing with. We'll see, though. I think most ace x's are going to be a call. Finds a fold.
I feel like we should run a contest, or maybe upswing. The biggest pot, like if someone guesses what the pot size is of the biggest pot each day.
Ooh.
Because this could be such a wide range. Like, if it just goes back and forth all day, maybe they'll have 100K stacks. I could see this getting real dirty.
I would love that.
Stacks.
I love giving away upswing shit. It's one of my favorite things to do. I did it on my stream all the time. So I agree. Anytime you can think of a way to give away upswings money or merchandise, Jamie, you just say that out loud. We'll make sure that Brady writes it down.
For me to do.
he loves content. That sounds like some good content. Brady, let's check that one off.
Yeah, Paul AT says, and if they guess correctly, they win that amount. I feel like that's pretty fair. I'm gonna get fired.
I don't. Yeah, you are gonna get fired. That's a lot of dollars. Maybe I don't know. You make up the ideas, but let's not commit to what they get, because that's where we're gonna get into trouble.
They're gonna be expecting 300K, and we send them like a tank top.
No, I'm just gonna start giving like PLO courses so that more people play PLO.
We get our overbet here. Doug's got about pot and a half here. King.
The top board pair is going to be really good here for the in position player, which is why he gets to play an overbet. Daniel would have, I think, has a higher percent chance of taking aggression earlier in the hand with the top pair stuff. Even though we have seen Daniel play really weirdly with his top pair. Los Angeles back. We have seen Daniel play non-standardly with his like top pair portion of range or whatever. Daniel is in the tankety tank, and this is why overbetting is a very good tool. Dougie's got, as I said, Doug's got the king six. The top pair card's really good for the imposition player. Gets the overbet call. Daniel, you probably can't blame him because Doug is Doug. Like it's like this is why randomizers are so nice. You can take away some of the fault from yourself. It's like, call, so I called. Like they told me what to do. Doug is adjusting his opening sizing very slightly. Daniel's now playing a bigger 3-bet sizing, which makes sense. We're getting deeper. The deeper that you get, the larger that your 3-bet sizing needs to be because you want to disincentivize the imposition player from calling. So the deeper that you are, the bigger you need a 3-bet because you don't want people to call. And that is how poker works. That's literally how the game tree starts. Like that is step one. And if you understand that concept, you can start to build a bunch of other stuff. We see Daniel's standard c-bet on the 8-9 deuce rainbow turn, also rainbow, no backdoor flush draw. Daniel plays the check. So when you see Doug betting here, I actually don't know what sizing he's supposed to use. I don't know shit. So let's see what happens. Doug plays a small sizing on the turn here, which I like because it puts a lot of pressure on Daniel's overcards portion of his range. His ace king, ace queen, king queen, king 10. I don't know how much of those he's going to have at this depth range, but it's really easy. It's a really easy way to apply pressure when you're that deep because Daniel's going to have to just like be in a super shitty spot.
Yeah. So chat was asking if Doug's the better player, how did he lose so badly in the live portion? It was 0.2%, right, of the whole match. I was actually lamenting this the other day that if this had happened, if they had this match set up, let's say 10 years ago, that would have been so overvalued that we probably could have bet Doug at 1-1 or even better.
I wish.
People were really bad at understanding variance back in the day, and I feel like everyone has gotten up to speed and gotten a lot better at it.
Yeah, that's something that I found interesting as a content creator, because let's say that you're winning as a content creator, people just are looking at the most recent results. Like, oh, you won 6K yesterday, you're a god. It's like, oh, you lost, like you moved up in stakes and lost a buy-in, but now that is the same amount as the 6K you lost yesterday, you're trash. And I understand that people love seeing the big numbers and that the big numbers get them all hot and sweaty. We all love the big numbers, but you have to remember that poker is a game, and in games are based in math. And with something like a $25,000 game, 25,000 hand game, which is what they've created for themselves, 200 hands don't mean shit. But I'm happy y'all got good content out of it, especially because seeing them live in front of each other is like a rare treat during these pandemic-y times.
True.
What are your how are you enjoying this match so far, Jamie? Are you enjoying watching it?
Yeah, I wish I actually have been like reading a little more about heads up and everything because I really only studied it in the context of MTTs, and that's usually, you know, you're going to be 40, maybe 60 big blinds deep, and that's it. So there's a lot of hands here that they play much, you know, much smaller pots with, where if you were playing heads up in a tournament, you're getting them in. That's why I was asking about the tens versus queens. I'm like, I don't really know the threshold for like when it is too much, when you've gone ham and put in way too much with a good pair versus when you're supposed to be like, okay, if I have tens here and I'm beat, I'm just coolered.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's great because we're learning together. We're going to watch this, like, we're going to figure that out as we go. But I think that for heads up no limit hold'em, it is just such a complex game. And Doug wrote the initial book on it, his first masterclass, which was put out a couple years ago. Like he wrote when he was at the top of the world, he made the masterclass that really upped the game. And it's fun seeing him come back and be like, this was my throne at one point in this game that takes a ton of work, and then being like, okay, this takes a ton of work. I'm going to put in a fuck ton more work and try to like get my crown back, kind of a thing. That is underappreciated, which I see that you respect, because you see how just like how complex this is and how much work has to go into it to know where your threshold, and the thresholds are the easiest part. Like that's all the stuff that you can like quote unquote memorize. Like that's the charts or whatever bullshit. When it gets more challenging is when you're on later streets and you're looking at how one range interacts versus another range from like an optimal place. And given that situation, how do you have to pick your bet sizings and all that shit? There's a lot going on.
Yeah, 7-Eleven in chat says, remember the classic Helmuth Dwan hand where Dwan shoved with 10s, 100 big ones deep, and Helmuth was like telling him, you're going to be out of this game, you're never going to win $1, kid, all this, and really it was just the most standard thing in the world. That was from way back in the day. I don't know how long you've been around poker, but some of the old TV had some serious lulls.
I believe it. No, I grew up. I grew up in poker. Like I started when I was 13. And was just addicted to it from that on.
Moofy asks, are they playing with charts up? Daniel actually went back on that position and said he doesn't care if they use preflop charts or not. And I think Daniel said he didn't want to use them, but he was allowing Doug to use
them. The charts are like, I don't know. That's a topic that's going to take a little bit of time to talk through. So I don't really want to get into it. But I do want to talk about Daniel betting 3/4. It looks like Daniel raised pre, bet the flop, bet the turn, takes it down, easy game. Doug with another overbet on the river here. 2.8K in the pot, so I'm not sure how he got here. But the top board paired, Doug is the first aggressor, and he wants Daniel to pay more than is in the middle. And I'd love to see that.
My name ain't Earl wants a camera on Doug. Listen, I can set the scene for you right here. Doug's probably wearing a tank top. Binks is in studio. Binks is just wandering around getting rich. And he's probably not showing much emotion at all. That would be my guess. And hopefully, maybe someday we should have a camera on both. Doug got caught 6 high.
Yeah, great call by Daniel at the ace queen. It's a little interesting. The queen of clubs is not working for him because that's a lot of the bluffs that Doug might have. But ace queen is a hand that you can call with. So well played there. Jamie, I have a question for you. I don't know much about you. I've seen your Twitter stuff. If you could be as rich as Binks and experience their life for a day, how much would you? Let me rephrase that. How much would you pay to experience Binks' life for a day?
Binks has a very good life. I would pay, about $350.
About $350? Okay, that seems reasonable, actually. Thank you for that. He called with ace queen honey. This is true. I don't know. We should start calling more dudes in poker honey. That'd be fun. I think
I'm just glad they stopped calling all the women honey and sweetheart and stuff like that. I'm glad that's trending downward.
Have you started to do? I would love for you. Like, I'm trying to be an ally here. Should I like? Should you call them honey and then I call them honey? Like, should we do it at the same time? Like, I just want to be supportive of the gender neutralization thing going down.
I think that's fair. I think that's the answer, actually, is that you just react to your poor treatment by treating other people poorly as well to even it out.
That sounds so healthy.
Miserable. Yeah.
That sounds so healthy. I love people. I love beating people down. That sounds great. Idiots from Rubber Island. Chat, you crazy. I missed you. My chat's also really different than this because I get like 200 to 1,000 people and they're all like PLO player humans. This is the ruckus chat. I remember, I'm gonna give a tidbit. When I started streaming, Doug was kind enough to hop on a call with me, and I was like, Doug, what do I need to do for streaming? Like, how do I moderate my chat? Because I was being a little more strict with it, and I was definitely banning people or like being more like pushy about it. And Doug was like, let the animals be fucking animals. That was like Doug did not care. He's like, let them do whatever they want. Like, just let them have it. And I was like, that is intense, Doug. And then you see his some of his old YouTube videos. Fees will like replay this once a month to bring himself joy, where it's Doug tilting during his bankroll challenge at chat for like 30 minutes. And it's one of the most epic pieces of content on the internet. Someone can find me that and post it in the chat. I would absolutely love it. Or just,
he had some regrets about starting that challenge. He's like, what am I doing? I don't want to play micros.
dude, I did an easier. Mine was easier. Mine was 5K to 25. Anyway, we'll talk about it after. This is a 100 big blind deep. We now have 4-bet pot. For those of you who have noticed, the standard 4-bet sizing is about 2.5 over the 3-bet. Daniel folds, easy peasy. But yeah, anyways, mine was 5K to 25K, and that was terrible. And his was like $100. That's just terrible. What would you need, Jamie, to do a challenge? That's my question for you.
Oh, I play a sick amount of poker anyway. I play a lot of online, so not much. I'm not great at negotiating if anyone was going to challenge me to something, but no, I don't mind grinding. The bankroll challenge did seem kind of miserable though. If you have to drop down in stakes and play micros and have to clear it every week before you can move up, I could see that being really annoying.
It is atrocious, especially when your normal games are running and you're playing like PLO 100 and just and sitting there just like seething, like and just seeing these like games running. It is super tilt inducing, and I'm sure like Doug specifically, given how competitive he is, he's like was the best player in the world. And it's like playing NL 25 and like misclicking regging tournaments, and like no matter how controlled you are, that's going to bring tilt to your soul. I believe it. So you're saying you've been playing a lot of poker. What does that look like for you during quarantine? Have you felt yourself getting better? Like, have you felt?
I started studying way more. I was joking that I've been in poker for a long time, but I like find other avenues to make money, or I'll do a podcast, or maybe a little bit of coaching for like really low limit people, stuff like that. And I didn't really put in studying until the pandemic. It literally took being locked in a house with absolutely nothing to do for me to touch a solver. So I'm way behind with that, but I have actually enjoyed it. It's a much more fun game to play when you feel yourself actually progressing instead of just stagnating.
I completely agree. You also get the answers. Speaking of an answer, we're going to see how Doug answers this bet on the river from Daniel. He's betting almost $10,000 into a 12,050 pot. Daniel had nothing. Doug had top 2 pair, chose not to check raise with it on the river. That is something that I'm a little surprised by. River's top 2 pair, it seems as if he figured Daniel was more polar and that he wouldn't be calling a check raise. For those of you who didn't see, it was 2-4-6 flush draw, turn 8 river king. Doug river top 2 pair and chose not to check raise it on the river, which made sense because Daniel had pure air. So Doug obviously is way better than me. But seeing the no check raise, even at this sack depth, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But as I said, Doug got it right. So that's my favorite thing about poker is when you get it right. I don't know if you feel this, Jamie. It's like, oh, I did, even if you didn't do it perfectly, you got it right. And so you feel good about yourself.
It's satisfying to look back on mistakes I made 2 months ago. Like, oh, I would play this differently now. That's pretty good.
That's my favorite thing about solvers and things like upswingpoker.com, where you can find some of the best training content on the planet, is that you could really see improvements in your game very quickly. Like, it's like you just had a leak that you were doing every single time that's going to save you like 3 big blinds per 100 hands. And those, it's like the low-hanging fruits of your poker journey, right? And then it gets addicting because you see the low-hanging fruit, and then the higher hanging fruit looks even tastier. Like, you just want to keep getting better and better, and that's why this is a beautiful game.
Yeah, I think that's when you stop being embarrassed about making mistakes, that's a really big part too. Where I would be arguing with a coach or someone who's helping me and say, oh, I did it because of this, and I'm trying to argue my way out of why I made a mistake. And then you're like, well, just accept it. That's good. You found a mistake.
I'm very happy that you had that realization, because you will now make a lot more money. Like, the ego is what kills, and possibly in this match, the ego might make somebody a lot of money or lose someone a lot of money. Like, we all know that this is an ego match, right? Like, this is a thing where both humans are just showing up like, nah, be quiet. I'm just doing this because I don't want to hear it anymore. And so,
yeah, but I thought maybe there should be a social media part of the bet where it's like, hey, if I beat you by this amount, you can't tweet for 6 months. That would have been amazing.
Send it to Brady. We'll pass it along to Doug. Also, shout out to Mike Brady, who I know is watching this. A lot of you don't know him. A lot of you in the upswing community. All of the wonderful content that you've seen over the past years, my bankroll challenge, Doug's bankroll challenges, articles, everything has been made by this man. He does an incredible amount of work for the poker community, and nobody knows about him. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Mike Brady because he deserves it. Anyway, Doug's betting the river now. I just did not see this hand. So I'm going to pretend in my mind that Doug is value betting. And that's how I play most poker anyways. If you had to, did you see this hand, Jamie, on the right?
I was mostly reading chat because that's my job.
Is this a value bet? Oh, I want to see what your intuition was.
It's brutal. The cards down is so brutal for viewers. I mean, the stakes are so high that it's still fun to watch, but there's so much investment when you're watching a hand. You're like, okay, I think he has this. And you're like, we'll never know. Rats. I know Doug wanted cards up, but I think Daniel did not.
I mean, that makes sense because Daniel's is going to be more exploity. Doug's going to be like, yeah, see my cards, figure out what I'm doing. And he just doesn't think Daniel's going to be able to do that.
Wompy Womp says, I don't care about the cards. I want the DNX rage cam. That would be amazing.
His rages, I'm not that big in like the Twitter content streets, but his rages are epic. Like it just like his is just like massive testosterone driven, like I'm ripped and yelling at something. He said he was going to stick someone's teeth somewhere. I was like, damn, son. That is
at least the insults were extremely creative. I'll give him that.
I love that. You love to see you love to see creative insults, right? You don't want to see people just like saying like, oh, you aren't balanced enough. It's like, no, it's like you are so shit at poker that if you showed up to the World Series, they would literally keep you in the bathroom because that's the only place you deserve. Like I want to hear, like I don't know, Joey's better at doing this than me, but like I want to hear that type of insulting. If you got to go all in on your insults.
Agree.
It seems like you do that at some frequency, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I don't. I think as long as you're funny, as long as your comment is mostly funny, it can stand to be a little mean as well. Just the mean with no humor behind it is basically Twitch chat.
Shouts to Twitch chat. Who says whatever comes to their mind?
Yeah, Chow Time makes a good point too. He said, "Let me know who's never yelled at their computer at home." So there are definitely times. It was just funny watching a very rich man yell at his computer and almost break it in a $600 WSOP bracelet event. Yeah. Before the money.
I agree with that. I have a lot of people that I've seen in chat asking how many hands we've played. I'll finish this one first. Unfortunately, as I said, WSOP.com is trash. And so we don't get live updates on how many hands have been played so far. But I'm guessing somewhere in like the 250 to 300 range. The session amount is more correct because we have someone manually looking at it, but we don't have someone sitting there counting the hands. Sorry about that. In terms of where is Joe Ingram, I don't know. I know he's somewhere in the ether.
He's okay. I did speak to him briefly. He's alive. He's not been kidnapped as far as I know.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, I mean, his kidnapper could have been talking to me, but it did seem like Joey. So yeah, I think he's just taking a little break. He's extremely online when he is online, so I think a break's probably a good idea sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with it. Yeah,
I do miss him though.
He's one of my favorite humans, and I don't want to. I know people are curious, and it's good that we got this mini update. Maybe we'll get some more in the future, or maybe he just stays away from ever. You never know. To be fair, if he is doing something, there's at least a 35% chance he's playing the great game of Harlem in Omaha, which I see in the chat here from Lock99. So that was a good bet. Joseph Ingram is safe. He's safe in my heart. He's safe in my soul. I keep him sacred.
Oh, that's a good point too. 7-Eleven says you need a break after spending 2 straight months breaking poker's biggest scandal down. That Postle thing, that really took a lot out of Joey. He was doing like 20 hours straight some days. It was insane.
That is insane. I agree with that. Joe Ingram equals charisma personified. Word. I agree with that. Daniel blocks a flush on an ace king 10 board.
Inducing?
Yeah, that's the only. I mean, that sizing, I don't know if that sizing is a thing on that board texture. When I say, okay, translation, when I say if something's a thing, it means like in solver land, if that's something that would show up, if you think that it would be a reasonable strategy. But the Doug wasn't taking a lot of aggression in position on an A-side board, which means he's not going to find a lot of raises on the river. So I don't know if we're going to get a lot of induction from the flush. Seems a little bit better to just be able to bluff more, right, and bet bigger. But we see the flush coming in on the turn on the left-hand table. We see the 3/4 pot sizing, and then get a call. What do you think is going to happen on the river here, Jamie?
I could see Doug jamming. What do you think?
This is a good spot to jam. Daniel's been taking a lot of aggression, and he should be betting river at some frequency, so you are going to get some check rips.
Just a call. Hand too good to jam.
Pair of jacks, one pair. This is a back the truck up moment if I've ever seen it. He said absolutely no.
Nice hand. Yep. Andre saying that this software is too tilting. I completely understand. I grind a lot of tournaments on WSOP. It is tilting, but it's the best we got right now, and our government is going very slow in legalizing online poker. So I'm happy to live in Nevada and actually get to play this, even if it's not the smoothest software.
I agree with that. I have WSOP.com to thank for many things in my life currently, one of which is my financial stability. So thank you, WSOP.com. But yeah, it's we live unfortunately in a world where regulation isn't logic based, and we just have to deal with it.
What do you mean? You don't think it's logical to be able to spend your life savings on horse racing and scratch offs, but not on a skill game?
If my name is Sheldon Adelson, it makes perfect sense. Anyway, what makes sense for Doug is that he calls the check raise on the king 10-5 two-tone board. Flush completes. Daniel checks. And so Daniel's been really checking these board texture changes. I haven't seen him like these type of cards. What it kind of shows to me is that Daniel isn't doing a lot of check raising with like single heart backdoor type stuff. Because that turn card, you should have a lot of flush draws in your range, and even some like backdoor flush draws that now turned into flush draws, which are really good barreling equity. And we've seen Daniel checking these board texture changes as a high frequency. So for those of you who are watching, take a look out for that and see if you see that as like I've only caught it like 3 times, but that might be a trend, right? And if you catch trends like that, you've now found a deficiency in Daniel's game. And you can message Doug at it. I'll give you his phone number after the stream. I'm sure he's really willing to listen to the Twitch pros in terms of how to adjust the strategy. So yeah, let me know. Maybe you'll put it on a billboard. That was one of my favorite things ever, was that billboard. My second favorite part about that billboard is my friend Chris Weiner, who I made the Advanced PLO Mastery course with for Upswing. He, before he was even an Upswing coach, has a selfie of him in front of that billboard when it was still up. So we had it for marketing collateral. Before, it was like the most epic thing ever. The fact that he actually had this selfie with him in front of the billboard. It was like he had no association with Upswing. He just loved that. He just loved it. Yeah, you love it when the universe comes together in a way.
That's commitment to a troll. It's not like, oh, I'm just gonna make a funny tweet or something. That shows some real commitment and willing to spend money on something so silly.
Oh yeah. I mean, but if you know the Upswing dudes, they're willing to spend money to make people's lives uncomfortable. Like, more so than almost any other group of people. I actually think more so than any group of people I know. They're willing to spend money to make people uncomfortable. Sebastian, Chris Weiner is amazing. Learned a lot from your course. Thank you. Chris Weiner is amazing. I agree. Speaking of amazing, Daniel is using his not overbet sizing on a board texture changing river. Doug says, fuck it. I'm raising very large, over the size of the pot. Doug definitely can have a lot of flushes here too, on the given the way the hand played out. See what happens here.
what's satisfying about online poker is that the tanking can never be too long.
Yeah, it's great.
Down.
God, we love immediate gratification as humans. Just like, give me the results.
Yep. Well, that's why I definitely don't want to talk about politics, but the speed of this election thing is making a lot of people very, very crazy.
I believe
days and days.
I believe it. We're also not going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about this hand on the left-hand table where Doug finds a c-bet on the ace-9-3 two-tone. This sizing makes sense if you understand Doug having an ace-x advantage because Daniel did not 3-bet, right? Doug's going to have more aces. He doesn't have to bet that big. Turn comes... the turn brings more draws, which means you're usually going to see more bets. When a turn brings, you even see overbets. General philosophy: turn brings extra draws, more things to bet with. Easy game.
Gotcha. Fossil says Jamie has the Minecraft cam filter. Yes, I'm actually in witness protection, so decided to blur out my whole self. Hope you like it.
I hear that's someone's kink, so you might be doing something for somebody. It's the best way to think about streaming. It's like maybe this is what someone wants. Have a decision for Negreanu here on the right-hand table. After the turn check call, decides not to lead. Up to Doug. Decides to go with a $4,700 bet into 7K. Left-hand table, Doug finds another overbet when another draw comes in. So a little bit of a pattern there.
When this flush card comes in, does that favor Doug having made the overbet on the turn, or is he not going to be doing that with a lot of flush draws?
I think that's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you. I think that Doug is going to be making that bet when he does turn a flush draw, but there are just not that many combinations of it, so he's going to be more value skewed. Would be my guess. Just because there aren't that many flush draw combinations that exist, because it's a backdoor flush draw.
Mm-hmm.
For all of you saying that this is a massacre, that Doug is beating the shit out of Daniel, this is still a short sample, right? Like Daniel won the first match, Doug is doing well this match, but Doug also won both all-in pre-flop spots where it was queens versus tens and queens versus ace queens for about the 250 big blind range, and that's just how heads up hold'em is, right? You have a lot of like jabbing and you have a lot of like nuance in terms of different spots, but then you just get it in for massive buy-ins, and that's going to dictate a lot of the swings of these matches. So you just have to be aware of it. Doug finds an easy check on the river and wins a pot. Oh, I love to see the click the pot button. That's what I'm more used to, is you just click the pot button on the turn. And so it makes it easier for me to commentate, actually, when Doug does it here on the left-hand table. Daniel does not like that sizing, finds a check raise. Goes with a 3x sizing. I don't know how large you need to be check raising this turn, but gets it through. Another thing, I see some people in chat saying, don't defend Daniel's shove with ace queen. Doug was doing this with ace queen on a different day. What you have to remember is that it's possible that both are the right answer, because that's how hold'em works. You have to be mixing. You have to sometimes, you have like a specific hand that at some frequency does one thing and at another frequency does another thing. So for example, on this turn, Doug has to bet with some hands at some frequency and some hands at another. This was a 3-bet pot that had a c-bet in it, where Doug found a c-bet, and now we are checking to Daniel. Very small sizing. Jamie, did you see Daniel using small turn sizings like this when you watched yesterday? I do not recall.
Yeah, and actually I had sweat some of his hands when he was playing before the match as well. I would just hop on when I was playing tournaments and open his tables. He had a lot of like very strange.
What's up, guys? Mike Brady here.
Ooh,
Brady, what's up?
And we have a special guest for all of you that I was speaking earlier. Mike Brady, Upswing's president.
I think you promoted him.
VP. I'm okay. You're president of my heart. VP of Upswing Poker here in the chat to help us with some commentary. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? How are you enjoying the action so far?
It's good.
I love Ruckus. That's actually in my LinkedIn profile, and so this match has been great.
Yeah, a lot of Ruckus so far. A lot of 100K pots, more than I expected. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I think we're 3 for 3 on winning them at Team Doug over here, so it's fun.
It's hashtag unbiased Team Doug.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard from the chat that people are looking for unbiased commentary, so I'll do my best.
You've come to the right place at Upswing Twitch chat.
This is the same thing. Daniel's playing another block. Brady, you know more about Hold'em than I do. It's a block on a board
Yes,
text.
so what was the action here? I assume Daniel check calls twice, flop and turn, and then leads this river.
Yeah, small.
It's probably not really. Like if you want to talk about what solvers do, probably doesn't do it too often, but it's solvers probably do lead in that spot.
Yeah, no, the lead makes perfect sense. This he's just using blocks in spots that I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm also not the Hold'em guy, so.
I think the plays can be somewhat reasonable. Like we're kind of splitting hairs on the sizing. Like maybe maybe a bigger size is better, but like if he's supposed to lead and he's doing some leads, like it could be pretty damn reasonable, even though he's going smaller.
Yeah, and respect to Negreanu for knowing spots to like find leads, because like I love all you live players out there. You're beautiful. Don't ever change. Please, actually, don't ever change. But you don't tend to find lead spots and like on board texture changes. And so the fact that Negreanu means that he really has been putting in work to his game.
Yeah, we know for sure Daniel's been studying. Like he's not. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Daniel, but he's not a stupid guy. Like he's a smart guy. He's been playing poker for a long time. He knows that Doug is a good player and that he's going to have to study a lot for this match, and he has been for sure. Question is just, is it going to be enough? We'll see. Double barrel gets through on the right for Doug.
And Brady, I know you like when I was offering contests with your merchandise, but that would be pretty fun. I think just looking at Doug's 205K stack, do you think we're going to see a $500,000 pot at any point in this challenge? Not today, but in general.
I think it's unlikely. I don't think. Sorry, I'm getting reports that my mic is a little feedbacky. I'll work on that. But I would say that we're probably not going to see a 400K pot or a 500K pot. I think once they get deeper than, 100K or so, they're probably going to reset the tables. That's just, I mean, if they don't, that would be a super pleasant surprise. I would love to see that much blood, but I do expect table resetting to happen.
Oh, so they are allowed to reset.
They didn't specifically talk about anything, but I think it's pretty standard for heads up challenges. Like you tend to reset. I'm gonna mute myself for a second so I'm not giving you guys all this feedback.
No worries. So Daniel finds probably what looks like a good sizing on the ace jack board in the 3-bet pot. Doug has to decide how he wants to continue. Probably not going to raise a ton. Turn is a 4 of clubs.
Any better now?
Yes, that is better.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That is much better.
Yeah, so one reason I wanted to hop on, well, we got a kind of a lull in the, or actually no, not really a lull in the action. We had a quarter pot bet on the ace jack board from Daniel. This is a double barrel, it looks like, in a 3-bet pot.
Yes. He bet 1/5 flop, betting on this quarter on the turn.
That's been Daniel's MO so far in these heads up challenges. We've also watched a little bit of his game when he was playing other people, and he seemed to be really like that small bet. See what he wants to do on this river. Goes for 12K into 16. With the nut flush, that's going to win the pot. Second nut flush.
Seems that hand was well played by Daniel.
Definitely. Really well played. And then Doug wins on the other table with a pair, or with a straight rather. So one reason I wanted to hop on while there's a lull in the action is I just wanted to talk about what we're going to be doing with this stream throughout the whole challenge. This is obviously the first one. It was a bit of a special one. Obviously, also we're trying to like work out the kinks a little bit. So some of you might have noticed we changed the table sizes at the beginning. We'll keep working based on your feedback to make the stream better. I mean, this is literally going to be a multi-month challenge, so we appreciate you guys for bearing with us. Also, the plan generally, so Daniel and Doug are going to play 4 days a week. They've agreed. They're going to be playing for at least 2 hours for each of those days. There's probably not going to be like a concrete schedule you can look at, unfortunately, but I mean, 4 days a week, you could check in. There's a pretty good chance they'll be playing pretty much every, about 57% chance they'll be playing every day. So feel free to just check back with the stream here. Most of the time, we are not going to have commentary. It's just going to be probably chill hop music playing. We'll be hiding the VODs afterwards, so like there's no like copyright issues like that. But just going to have some music playing. So basically, we wanted to step in and help you guys out because, and honestly, this is for myself too. I live in California. Literally, if you don't live in one of 3 specific states, you cannot watch these tables. You can't even open them. So we wanted to make sure you guys could watch it. I'm going to pause talking for a minute while Doug bets this flop in, I believe, a 3-bet pot on 5-5-3 Jack. See what happens on the turn here. Size bet from Doug. Getting juicy fast.
The sizing, I think, is really nice because it's, as I said before, geometric sizing. When Daniel calls, we're going to have a really good river shove sizing for Doug here.
Daniel wins with, look like a straight, rivered straight on the other table for about a 10K pot. The pot size bet gets through. So anyway, the general plan for the stream, it's going to be up whenever they're playing. The tagline for it is, when they sit, we go live. That's the plan. We have someone manning the stream. They're going to manually make it go live and update the results throughout every stream. We're going to have music playing. So, it's just kind of like a chill situation where you guys can pop in, check in on the match, sweat it for a long time, whatever you want to do, whatever your relationship wants to be with this stream. We're happy to have you on. Thanks. And we really appreciate you guys for watching.
We appreciate you for putting in the work. Everyone in chat, can you get your dongers out for Mike Brady and the Upswing team for providing you with this content? Please and thank you.
Thanks, chat. And Dylan.
Of course. Mike, that is a real question, though, because on Doug's old stream, we have to have the files for the donger somewhere that we can put in the Upswing chat.
Oh, yeah, we'll get the emotes and all that. Don't worry.
All right, good. Yeah.
Again, first stream, working out the kinks. It will only improve from here.
I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. Do I think D-Negs is crying yet?
Why don't we should go to the D-Negs cam. You just got to press F. Just kidding.
It's amazing to me that Doug hasn't streamed for like 5 years and people still know what dongers, like the throw your dongers up thing. That's how epic it was in the Twitch streets.
It's definitely waning though.
I mean, it's gonna
fewer and fewer people know about the dongers, and that's something that we're gonna have to turn around throughout this challenge.
I agree wholeheartedly.
One other quick thing I wanted to let everyone know who's listening. We're also going to be updating on Upswing Poker a page, upswingpoker.com/HU4Grudge, heads up for Grudge. That page is going to have Doug's graph of the challenge, a very 2-sentence recap essentially of every challenge after it happens, and it also has the challenge rules there as well. So if you're not familiar with what's going on, jump in and check that out. You can see the URL at the bottom left corner of the stream that you are looking at.
Awesome. It's gonna be, I think that's very helpful for those of us who maybe don't have the time to sit and watch the stream every day. Especially because we love to see 3-bet pots like the one on the left here, starting the hand over 150 big blinds deep on the 9-10 Jack 2-tone. Daniel finds a check. He's been finding lots of C-bets on these board textures, so something of note that he found a check. Have another 3-bet pot on the right, Queen 7-5 2-tone. Daniel's betting the 3/4 sizing is normal. gets a fold on the right, and on the left we see Doug betting small. Does not have to bet big because when Daniel checks there, he is relinquishing his top end of range advantage at some frequency. That's a lot of words. Doug doesn't have to bet a lot because Daniel's not going to have a lot of good hands on this turn, though. Brady, what do you think is going to happen?
I tuned out for a sec. So did this go D-negs 3-bet and 3-bet and C-bet?
No, D-negs 3-bet, check calls 40% flop.
Gotcha. Well, this is certainly a better, really good board run up for Doug in general.
Yeah, very good.
I mean, Daniel's certainly going to have some 10x here. He's going to occasionally have a flush. But for the most part, Daniel's range is in pretty rough shape. And Doug has a lot of the things. He can have a lot of the things right here.
Exactly, which is why Doug doesn't have to bet the flop very big once Daniel checks in a 3-bet pot. Daniel will be tricksy though, right? Like that's the thing.
Oh, he's certainly tricky.
Yeah.
Certainly tricky. We saw it with that in the live session. Ooh, and we have, well, that's a well played hand. Clearly well played hand by both players for sure. Doug's flop bet is pretty interesting. I'm not sure everyone would do that, but I how bad can it be to bet middle pair in an open ender?
You probably want to. I think you want to have a decent amount of aggression in that spot too. When opponent has been playing 3-bets with a high c-bet frequency, even on lockdown board textures, Doug probably just is trying to meet X frequency of betting, and that probably is just a mix of a bet.
Yeah. So anyway, about Daniel being tricky, as we see Doug's c-bet in a 3-bet pocket called here on 885. He 3-bet in the live portion of the match. He 3-bet 10-6 suited, got the king 6-6 rainbow board. He c-bet the flop for a 5th pot and then checked the turn, which is a very cagey check on the turn, and ended up getting Doug to blast off, so it worked out perfectly for him. So Doug definitely has to look out for some, I wouldn't necessarily say unorthodox traps, but maybe unorthodox traps throughout this challenge.
I'm going to cut you off real quick. Huge bet here. We have a 3-bet pot. Doug bets flop, bets pot on the turn. Doug is going to have all the overpairs. So he has all the aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s. Daniel has a little less of them. I don't know who has more 8s. Brady, you'd know better than me. But the full pot on the turn sets up a river ship size, which Doug goes for. No snap call.
No snap, so no quads.
Yeah, no quads.
Daniel certainly has the advantage in 8s here, but
Doug just has Daniel called the turn with the 7-9 suited, no pair inside straight draw, binks the full house on the river.
I am baffled by that turn call. I'm really, really surprised to see that from Daniel. I'm pretty sure it's, dare I say, not a good play to call that turn. And then Daniel in particular, he seems to be pretty sensitive to making smart folds and kind of being prudent in the right situations, especially when he's not sure. And I would think someone like him would make that fold there, but I guess he decided to peel a card, and he got punished as much as possible by taking the 9 river. That aspect of it is unlucky, but he probably shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, Doug also used a full pot sizing on the turn, right? He's very much using his overpair advantage to extract max value, his overpair range advantage to extract max value. And Daniel doesn't block. He blocks the hands he wants Doug to be having, right? He wants Doug to have his 6-7 suiteds, his 9-7 suiteds in that range. And so he has probably one of the worst combinations to be calling with, because those are the hands he wants Doug to have in his turn pot sizing range.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
It would definitely be a reasonable peel, or at least a fathomable peel versus a 3rd pot bet or a 1/4 pot bet. But versus Doug's big size, I'm really surprised to see that. And
I mean,
looks like D-negs is back. Needed a quick breather after that one. Can't blame him.
Every time he loses a big pot and then sits out, I just assume he broke something. His monitors just there's smoke coming out of it. I don't know. He came back pretty quickly, so I'm probably wrong.
I mean, what he could just have maybe he has a row of antique vinyl or antique cutlery or something that he just breaks with a hammer as he goes, at each beat one at a time, just so that he's not causing too much destruction but can still vent out that anger. And he's not on stream, so he can't actually yell at. He can yell at the computer.
For anyone who's kind of newish to poker, look up 2 months 2 million if you want to see the rage room. And that whole series is awesome. I think it's crummy quality. It's only on YouTube, but it was amazing. And yeah, I thought that was so funny. They would just go in there and break expensive things.
It's also so funny knowing Chewy and those dudes now when they were all 21, just kind, composed. Like,
Yep,
really,
Chewy is
really
the most
well.
zen human being, but in that show, he was just, he was like college age.
It's called college Chewy. It was very
Yeah.
very different than current Chewy.
For any new poker fans who have not seen 2 months 2 million, it's got to be on YouTube or something. Go
Yeah.
seek that out. It's at worst, there's several episodes, but it's at least worth like skimming through, seeing some of the moments. It's really funny stuff. Can't believe they decided to give those guys a show, and I'm thrilled that they did.
Yep. It would be too reasonable if they try to make one of those now. All the people that could potentially win $2 million in 2 months are actually just very reasonable people.
Right.
They're not going to be going to clubs and breaking stuff.
It would be a boring show. Very boring show these days. OTB in Belgium or whatever, just like,
Yep. 8-Bit Stout says Ansky was in that too. Ansky was amazing in that. His personality has mellowed out so much, but he was like the college guy chasing tail the whole time. He was really funny.
Great.
Ansky gave me one of the largest real talk lessons of my poker career. He just like destroyed me in a World Series event. I messaged him on 2+2 and he just told me that I was trash, and that actually is what like pivoted my entire career. So shout out to Ansky for helping me become a better person.
Nice guy.
Brady, did you know the cutoffs for when you start ramping your 3-bet sizing? What big blind levels?
In terms of stack depth?
Yep.
I actually am not sure how much that gets done. I've been surprised in 6max in particular how many people don't really size up their 3-bets when stacks get deeper, even out of position. I've been really surprised to see that. I could see it being different for heads up, but I haven't studied like, in-depth solves on pre-flop heads up. So honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see much, if any, sizing changes until like 200 blinds. And then, it's probably going to be pretty minor at that point even.
That makes sense. I haven't seen Doug do it, but I've seen Daniel do it. So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
maybe
the priority is just because if you raise a larger size, if you up your sizing because you're deeper, you theoretically have to play a tighter range. You have to do so with a tighter range as well. So it tends to just be better in a lot of people's minds, at least this is the argument I've seen, that you choose a pretty normal size and just do so with your normal range, and then you just get to VPIP more. Essentially, you get to play more hands, which allows you to make more money overall.
That makes sense. Doug Rivers the 10 with a 10-4 offsuit. Love to see it.
Yeah, the old running trips draw. Very well played.
He had the 4 diamonds as well. It's really important. I've seen recently more people asking how many hands. We're getting about like a little over 200 hands an hour, just looking at the lobby right now. And we've been streaming for an hour and 45 minutes. So quick maths, somewhere in like the 375 to 450 hand range would be my assumption.
Yeah, unfortunately, for those of you who don't know, WSOP doesn't facilitate sort of the grinder mentality very much, and by that I mean they don't have hand histories in like any form. So, that in a way that's good in my opinion, because I think it's good to not allow trackers or trackers are fine, but HUDs and things like that are generally better for the game to not have those, which is good. I'm going to pause for a second though, because we have a large pot. Looks like DNeg's 4-bet on the right table and got the king 9-5 flop, and the C-bet gets through immediately. Yeah. So anyway, WSOP they don't have hand histories. There's no like real convenient way for us to track results here. Really no feasible way. So we basically just have to work with what we have and estimate the amount of hands they've played, estimate how much they're up and down during the streams, and then after the streams when Doug and Daniel are available and not focusing on this extremely high stakes match, which they have to use 100% of their focus on, then we'll figure out where the dust settled, record the exact number of hands, get the exact win-loss number, and then we're going to post that on that page that you can see in the bottom left corner of the stream, upswingpoker.com/HU for Grudge.
Yeah, some people in chat have asked why they're playing it on WSOP, obviously because there's some issues that we would like fixed from WSOP, but it is the only legal regulated site in Nevada, and that is where both players live. So we are giving it a hard time, but really it's the only option that makes sense right now.
For sure. And I mean, credit to WSOP, they didn't even have heads up tables as Doug scoops this pot with second pair. They didn't even have heads-up tables going into this, and then Doug and mainly Doug, but on behalf of him and Daniel, asked, can you add heads-up tables so we could practice, and then can you add them for the challenge? And they almost immediately facilitated. So a lot of credit to WSOP, not taking much away from them, but it's just specifically for tracking this challenge. It's fairly inconvenient. But it was really important for both the players, particularly Doug, I believe, to play on a regulated site. And also, they both want to be in the comfort of their own homes right now, which is understandable. Crazy times we're in.
Sure.
Daniel going for a small probe here, it looks like. 400 and 1800.
Yeah, Doug's just going to be calling it a super high frequency too. We see D-negs get snapped off by a pair of sixes on the right-hand table. Daniel had no draw, no equity. Not a bad hand to bluff with either, because it makes it so that Doug has more of like the flush draw type stuff. So not a bad bluff. That's one thing that I think people see and get like freaked out about. It's like, oh, they had Jack 6 offsuit. How could they possibly bluff here? Well, when you have Jack 6 offsuit, it's more likely your opponent has flush draw type cards, which means it's more likely that they don't have equity, which means it's more likely that they will fold. And so you see something on the surface and it's like, that looks terrible. And then you think about it a little bit more and you really try to do the push and the pull of, given what my two cards are, what does that mean about what my opponent's two cards could be? And that's a very important aspect of a winning poker player, specifically in a heads-up dynamic.
Welcome to the chat, K Rabichow. He wants to know who the commentators are. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, I don't think we have a command.
Well, first of all, we got Jamie Kerstetter over there. Twitter darling.
Agree.
Star of Twitter. My name is Mike Brady. I'm the VP of Upswing Poker. I used to play poker for a living. I was in Doug's stable for a little while back in the early 2010s. Then when the guys started Upswing Poker in 2016, I quickly hopped on the rocket ship before they had a product, and that's where we are now. I've just been working with them since. And over here, we have Dylan Weissman, premier PLO streamer and coach.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought I was it. Yeah. My name is Dylan Weissman.
You need to talk so the camera goes to you.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, my name is Dylan Weissman. I am a professional poker player. Primarily play Pot Limit Omaha. Am one of the Pot Limit Omaha co-producers for Upswing Poker. Also love doing the Twitch stuff. I have a Twitch stream, twitch.tv/cookies1, COZERKIEZ1. I should know my own Twitch stream. And I did a big goal challenge there, and we'll probably be doing some PLO content in the future. They decided to have a PLO player here in the Hold'em streets because 4 cards is more complex than 2, so this is kind of easy. But yeah, back to the action. We have a relatively large pot on the right-hand table that Doug easily takes down with a pair of 3 10s. Excuse me. Daniel hasn't brought the ruckus a lot on the river, and I've been saying the word ruckus a lot. And for those of you that don't like it, it's because you don't like the Wu-Tang Clan, and that means I don't like you, and I'm sorry about that. But that's something to notice, especially in heads-up poker, is when someone does not have large aggression frequencies in spots where they are going to maybe have more bluffs than their check back frequency should dictate, and they're not taking that spot. That's something you really need to be aware of, even though Daniel is super trappy. So we, as spectators, I want you to be aware of it moving forward in time.
So chat says that you play pot limit because you can't handle no limit. Is that true? Are you afraid of no limits?
That's a very good question. On a spiritual level, I've been working on that with my therapist. On a practical level, I think that being able to bet the pot is easier because you can say the word pot out loud and everyone knows exactly what's going on.
Can't do that no limit.
You can't do that no limit. Like if you say the word pot, people think that you're a fish. Whereas in PLO, you can be a fish or a reg. I just like having 4 cards. I like combinatorics. 4 cards are easier for my brain to navigate. Plus, for those of you who don't know, you can make a lot of money in PLO. I don't know if that might be an industry secret because people are kind of bad at it. Which is why at upswingpoker.com we made a course specifically for you called the Advanced PLO Mastery Course. #ad. Anyways,
Dylan did a great job. By the way, Dylan and Jamie, have you heard the phrase, by the way? Some players, pros even, won't play no limit. They can't handle the swings.
that is yeah, y'all think that this is swingy. Watch like too aggressive. I've literally swung 50 buy-ins in a 5-hour PLO session before.
Yikes.
Heads up PLO. That is just how the game works.
That's fun.
It is fun, especially when you're on the winning end. When you're on the losing end, you go jump in the pool.
Fair enough. Will be interesting to see if they decide to keep playing after 7 minutes here. The agreement on the match is to play 2 hours, 4 days a week, as I mentioned earlier, and then at the 2-hour mark of the sessions, it's up to the players if they want to keep going. Obviously, it has to be unanimous. They have to both want to do it. I'm going to assume with D-Negs getting a little bit whacked today, I'm going to assume he does not want to keep it going, but, we'll see.
So it has to be minimum 2 hours. They've locked that in, but they haven't locked a maximum.
Right. I mean, and I'm sure they would quit, if needed, they would quit early, but just, some sort of emergency or something. But the plan is to play 2 hours at minimum every day that they play.
We have a 3-bet pot here on the right-hand table, the Jack-Jack 8 two-tone. Let's see if Daniel goes with his. So he had even been on these board textures, been using larger sizing. So it seems like he's even on the same board, he's mixing up his sizings, which is maybe I'm misremembering it, but something to be aware of. Turn as the king favors Daniel relatively heavily, I think, in a 3-bet pot.
I missed it, but
3-bet pot, Daniel bets 1/5 on flop, and then checks turn. Doug checks back.
Of course, Doug's going to have a lot of pairs here.
Brady, we had some good questions. Are Doug or Daniel ever going to come on the stream after the challenge? Do we know if that's going to happen? Like after a day's challenge is over, are we going to get a breakdown from them?
I would guess probably not. I would probably check in with I don't know exactly what Daniel's going to do, so maybe check his socials if you want to see what's going on with him specifically. And then if you want to, and then same goes to Doug if you want to know what Doug's going to be doing, which my guess is he's not going to be doing very many post-match interviews, but you never know. And it looks like Doug drags a nice sized pot with a rivered boat here. I'm going to have to assume Daniel had that beat going into the river if he called. So
yeah,
not for sure, but
makes a lot of sense.
Pretty likely Doug got lucky there.
Also, Doug should never be folding the flop in a 3-bet pot there. And then checking back the turn makes a lot of sense. So I think well played probably by both players. We couldn't see Daniel's cards.
Oh, you guys can't see his cards? I've been watching. Just kidding. Just want to tilt the chat.
Yeah, we've gotten asked about hole cards a lot today. Listen, guys, we want to see the hole cards too. You have no idea how bad I want to see these goddamn hole cards, okay? But unfortunately, that's something that the players would have had to agree to. They did not come to an agreement on it. In particular, I don't think Daniel wanted to show them off, which is likely a smart decision on his part, in my opinion. And I'm sure Doug is fine not showing hole cards as well. So, that's just how it worked out. This is kind of the best we could do is no hole cards, live action, whenever they're playing. Looks like Doug won another nice sized pot on the right with King 9 on a 9-high board. And then on the other table, Doug's overbetting the river on the flush completer, and it gets through.
Brady,
has Daniel been pretty consistent with his open size of this match? Is he going 1K pretty much the entire time?
Yes.
Interesting, yeah. Looks like Doug has made a slight adjustment. It appears he went from 910 to 930, which that's some very epic precision. But assuming there's logic behind it, which I'm almost certain there is.
I mean, yeah, I believe it for sure.
I believe he was going 910 at the beginning. I could be mistaken on that, but
no, I think you're correct. Doug is a very meticulous poker player, to say it lightly. Anyway, we have a 3-bet pot on the Ace King King board. You do not need to bet big. It is you're just going to have the nuts way more often than your opponent because they didn't 4-bet you, which means they don't have Ace King. So you get to bet small sizing. Daniel calls.
A lot of action right now too on the other table. Daniel probed the turn. Probe is leading the turn after the preflop razor check back on the flop. He probed the turn on the queen 6-5-4. Doug raised, and then we got the queen river after Daniel called. Daniel does check it over.
Say on the second table, we see Doug betting the turn, getting called again. King river now.
Really interesting card.
Yeah, very interesting card.
Would expect a decent amount of chops here.
Nah, Doug just got the deuce 3. Stone nut low.
Once Doug checks, I would retract that comment. But
no, he has the range advantage for sure. Daniel also, like, for example, he didn't choose to 4-bet ace jack suited, right, at 100 big blinds, which is something that
which is definitely fine.
Yeah.
I am really surprised to not see him bet that river. It is a weird spot. Like, I mean, he must think he's just not really getting called often. I'm not sure you're supposed to always bet an ace when check to there. Would expect it to bet at least, sometimes.
Probably supposed to check your aces that, well, Doug bet the turn, so he doesn't even have his like queens, jacks, tens parts of range. So it doesn't even matter that the jack is blocking pocket jacks, right? So
yeah, off the top of my head, I'm really not sure how the relevance of blockers comes in. I just am a little bit, I mean, I'm not surprised to see Daniel check because he's definitely been a little bit more passive than people were expecting, but I could be a bet at some frequency. I'm not super confident about that though. Great assault.
Jamie, I have a question.
All right.
What percentage of Twitch chat do you think could be Daniel Negreanu heads up at poker?
Ooh.
This is where I have to decide if I want to make Twitch chat like me or if I want to tell them the truth.
I'm just putting the power in your hands.
I think you should just say both. Just say both answers.
I would say, I don't know, 2% maybe. I'm giving them the same 3 months though to learn.
Oh, that's fair.
Right now it's probably almost none. But Kay Rabishaw was in the chat.
I was just going to say, it depends how many K-Rabs we've got in the chat, because if you've got a lot of those, then it's a high percentage.
We had Henry Kilbane's in the chat. He's more of a PLO guy, but definitely capable of learning. So yeah, maybe 1 or 2% if they put in the time.
How many people? There's like, what, 2,500 people in here? So 50 of them. I know of 3 humans in this chat that could beat Daniel in my percent, or in my opinion. Who knows?
Chat on YouTube, where we also have 8K people watching. We got some guesses here. I'm going to read off some of these guesses on how much of the chat can beat Daniel Negreanu. Mike Schaefer, 25%. Oscar Johnson, 90%. Anonymous, great name, 0.005%. And then I know I'm wrong, but comma is his screen name, 100%. 100%. Really, really brilliantly executed from I know I'm wrong, but.
It's great. Yeah, I don't know. I saw Norman Chad was in the chat also. Chat has pointed out. So there's at least 2 or 3 people who could beat Daniel heads up.
Does Norm add 2 or 3 people or remove 2 or 3 people given his poker aptitude? I don't know Norm well. You seem to know him much better than me.
Oh, I was just Norm would absolutely thrash Daniel. That's why that match isn't happening. Is like Norm has too much money already. He gets paid just billions of dollars for articles he writes, and
So for those of you that don't know, on WSB.com, they have been gracious enough to add a new poker way of communication where you cannot talk, you can only ... people. For those of you who are not familiar, so we see the
first to the challenge.
We're seeing D-Negs talk a lot of shit, saying you ran fucking well. I'm stealing this from Fowler to win this 200K. You see Doug replying to him saying, "What do you mean I ran well? This was my expectation." Pretty intense, but that's what we expect from these 2 people.
What if he just said, "I love you, Doug"?
It's much more fun when you're the one that dictates what the ... are. Like it's like improv, but my favorite type of improv.
So this is a crazy first day of the online portion. Just a massive day for Doug. And obviously we saw some very big pots go his way. Pre-flop, he had queens versus tens, he had queens versus ace queen. And not a whole lot of lucky spots for D-Negs, but what do you guys think, especially Brady, who probably has some insight into this? Do you think that Daniel got thrashed today, or do you think he ran bad? Is it some combination?
It's been a little bit since the update on the current results. We're working on getting those, but I'm just going to go off what it says, which is 275. That seems about right? It seems roughly right. I would say Daniel's ace queen 5-bet shove probably completely standard, especially against Doug. So kind of disregard that one. You know, then there was also a queens versus tens, and then did you say there was one more kind of pre-flop cooler? What was it?
There wasn't the pre-flop cooler. It was Daniel calling 9-7 suited in a 3-bet pot.
Yeah.
That one that one counts. That one counts on his results. It looks like that is GG. They are sitting out now, or Daniel has left the table, so it looks like GG. But yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, take out the coolers. Daniel still lost about 4 buy-ins this session. So, you know, is it a thrashing? Depends on your definition of a thrashing. It's definitely a really rough session for Daniel, though. Yeah. And it looks like that's going to be it for today.
So for the future, it's also good to note that they did do their required amount of time, right? They did do their 2 hours, and so the fans can be grateful that both of these people are putting themselves out there, doing what they agreed upon doing, which is phenomenal. As to answer the question that Jamie said, I think that Doug just seems more solid generally. Like we saw a little bit of variation from Daniel's bet sizings on the same board texture. Not to say that that's not without a strategy, just from an outsider's perspective. We also saw that one probably not great play with the 8-8, 5-8 board texture. Those type of situations are going to burn you a lot of money in heads up if you make them at a high frequency. And so I think that Daniel came in here, played way better than I think a lot of people expected him to. Has definitely been putting work into his game, but it's probably going to be an uphill battle.
Definitely.
And that doesn't mean he can't win it.
Yeah, he's still alive, most certainly. So yeah, we're probably gonna wrap the stream up now. It's possible Daniel comes back, I suppose, but let's assume he's not. I mean, the dots in the chat seem to be indicative of them kind of communicating. Maybe that was some sort of Morse code that we just like don't know. So maybe they're done with the session. More than likely they are. If they do come back, we'll go back. We'll come live again tonight. More than likely that's not going to happen though. I expect the next session. I could see them playing tomorrow. I could see them playing Sunday. Keep an eye on their social media pages. Keep an eye on Upswing Poker's social media pages. Then you'll see when we go live with this match. Again, when they sit, we're going to go live. And then most streams going forward are probably not going to have commentary. It's possible we will. Well, we definitely will on some streams. But just kind of a heads up for you guys. Most of the time, we're just going to have music playing. It's going to kind of be a situation where you can check in whenever you want. Sweat the action, you know, something you could, you know, check in, quickly check the results, you know, things like that. And then again, there's that link at the bottom left of the stream that you are looking at, upswingpoker.com/heads-up-for-grudge, HU for grudge. And that's where you can keep track of like how much they're winning, how many sessions they've played, stuff like that.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow if you want, you know, if you want to get the heads up every time they're starting to play in case their schedule gets to be a little more irregular, you'll get some notifications. So, you know, this is going to be several months probably, right, Brady?
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly.
Also, make sure to follow Jamie Kersetter on Twitter. You gotta plug your shit, and she has a very good Twitter follow. I don't know what it is. You can probably plug it yourself.
No, I mean, I just talk about dogs a lot. That's it.
All right. Well, I am hearing reports now that our cam is frozen, so I guess that's a good point to call it. So, Jamie, any closing thoughts? Keep in mind that it is Dylan's face up on the screen as you say this, so it's gonna look like Dylan's saying it, and then we're gonna go ahead.
It's back. We're back. No, we have our video back.
Damn it! I was about to just talk about. I'm wearing these cool goggles. They protect my eyes against the polarization of the.
I'm a sensitive person. I'm sensitive.
But no, I just want to say thanks for hanging out. Your comments are always fun to read. And yeah, this has been fun to watch. Obviously, I'm a fan of Doug. I'm a friend of Doug, so fun for me. Sorry for the DNegs fans in the chat, but you know it's a long challenge.
Long challenge indeed. Okay, and again, we know that number with the results is not updated yet, but we are, once the dust settles a little bit, I'm going to talk to Doug, find out exactly how much he won or lost this session. I believe he won. Could be wrong about that. And then we'll make sure it gets updated over on that page. Again, upswingpoker.com/HU for grudge. All right.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Twitch chat. It's always a pleasure. It's an honor to be able to interact with you. You make my life better.
Such a privilege to see you guys. Such a privilege.
All right. Later, everybody. Have a good night.